Hello, my name is Lucy Ford and I'm an entertainment reporter, and I'm so excited to be hosting this panel on the art of the fan cam. So fan cams and fan edits have exploded on social media in recent years, and they're used to celebrate everyone and everything from K-pop idols to Hollywood directors to frontline workers. And they've also in recent months become a key part of the conversation in terms of online activism. So clearly they're a bit of an online cultural phenomenon, and we want to examine whether these videos are more than just memes and tokens of affection, and whether they can be considered art in their own right. So to help me delve into this question, we've brought together some amazing cultural critics and experts to discuss all things fan cam and fan edit. So joining me today, we have culture writer Hania Angus, film critic and culture writer Iona Murray, and digital culture reporter Palmer Harsh. So I'm very happy to have you all here to talk fan cams and fan edits. Okay, I'm gonna start this with like an open-ended question, so feel free to jump in. First of all, to take it down to like the bare bones of everything, what would you say in your definition is a fan cam, and what would you say is a fan edit?
Well, for me, I think a fan cam is more centered on a person themselves. So, like a celebrity outside of their film and television is just like them on a red carpet, sort of just posing with music. Whereas a fan edit has a lot more layers to it. Like you would include clips from a TV show, maybe from a music video, pictures from their Instagram, tweets. And I think it just brings in a lot more modes of media compared to a fan cam.
Personally, I guess I would say like the fan cam falls under the K-pop umbrella, whereas it's a camera filming a K-pop idol performing. Whereas I would say a fan edit is just anything outside of the scope like that, in terms of just like editing clips together of a celebrity, a character from a film, or just anything generally. But I've also noticed that fan edits kind of get referred to now as fan cams. So I guess the definition's a bit more blurred these days.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that the language around like fan cams has gotten a bit messy in the sense that I first saw it popularized specifically within K-pop fandom to usually signify like typically a vertical shot video, usually by like a fan site or, what we call maybe a professional fan who takes photos of idols, doing performance videos, or perhaps someone at like a fan meeting event or things like that. But now the term definitely also, I think, broadly encompasses fan edits, which I know there's some tension about in fandom as well. But yeah, like Hania said, I think like the fan edit definitely has a much more rich like sort of syntax or art form, and encompasses like lots of different mediums or like ephemera around a certain show or a person, and has grown into something completely separate from the fan cam that's obviously really transcended K-pop fandom.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I noticed so much to start with in K-pop. Sort of like just you'd see it spamming tweets with just like, here's my fave, and like look at my fave, and that sort of thing. So I guess if we can sort of separate them, or if they still need to be separated, where would you normally find a fan cam or a fan edit? Like what's the context that you would normally come across them on something like Twitter?
Usually from like my TL, so it would be more so film Twitter. It would be mostly someone trying to promote their fave's film, or saying that they find a director really hot or something like that. And it's more so, it can be used in either the context of promotion or just thirsting. And I think for me, that's how I find it. But like I know, like you were saying with K-pop Twitter, a lot of it is to promote like the idols and sort of like their dancing and their new songs and sort of just like how talented they are.
Yeah. Is that the same for everyone? Do you agree?
Yeah, I feel like they're kind of like, I always sort of describe it as sometimes they're like punctuation on tweets too. Like you could have completely unrelated tweets. Like I remember, fan cams are always like found in cancellation hashtags, for example. So, okay, say Logan Paul is over, party is trending. And you're going to be like, Logan Paul films a dead body once. He's a horrible person. Anyways, stream this fan cam of Dahyun from Twice, right? Like, so they're kind of like this unrelated sort of like punctuation on tweets too, I think, which I feel like you see like edits and fan cams like deployed in that same sort of way now too.
Yeah, I'd agree as well. I think like the beauty of fan cams is actually like there doesn't need to be a context to it. It really can just be a random tweet on the timeline, and there really is no explanation, but it just exists, and people love it for existing.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's really funny how I think when you live in an online space, or especially on somewhere like Twitter where these videos really exist, you sort of just start to understand the language without really knowing how you got there, which I think is the same for like so many things online, like with memes, like trying to explain them to someone not online is just like, I don't know, impossible, I guess. But I noticed that like with fan cams, they're often used as like, you can gauge context just without having any language. Like if you can just tell if someone's disagreeing with a tweet or agreeing with it, just like based on whether they put a fan cam in the reply. It's really funny. It's such a funny sort of like evolution of language, I guess. So I guess focusing on fan edits, right? So reaction memes and pictures are very low lift in terms of how long they take to make. They're often screenshots, or you know, you can make them on like Instagram stories as well. They don't require much effort, but fan edits require so much work, especially like the really stylized ones that are timed to music. There's specific clips, there's filters added, and there's a lot of fan labor that goes into making that. What do you think the motivation behind that work is really?
I remember when Vine was around, there were a lot of people who would make edits of celebrities, or mostly characters, and it would be like a lot more stylized than fan edits are now, because they would use like different ways of like imagine like a Windows presentation and you have like slides and stuff, and you know, and it would be really creative, and I would sit there like at 15, 16 years old being like, why is someone putting so much effort into this? And then you kind of realize quickly, for a lot of them, they find a lot of joy in creating things like this, because it's just an expression of their love for whatever celebrity, TV show, film it is, the same way in which someone writing fan fiction or, you know, creating art in a different way would be. And I think you also have on the other side of like fan cam, like I said, promotional aspects, wherein it is really sort of linked to stan culture in regards to how people kind of, you know, personify celebrity as their own person. And so they want to promote this person because they love them, they care for them, and, you know, they want to see their success grow over the years.
I'd agree as well. Like, I remember when I was like 15, 16, and I was on Tumblr, and I like taught myself how to make GIFs and use Photoshop, and it took me so many hours, because I was never really like an expert at making GIFs like some people on Tumblr. And, you know, you'd think to yourself, like, why would I go through like so many hours of work just to get, you know, barely any recognition for it, you know, just in the scope of Tumblr. Like, my posts were never really that popular in the first place. But I think it just comes out of like a place of love, and like really just being dedicated to sharing your love for something in film or television, or just anything in general. And I think it just comes from like a really earnest and wholesome place to just basically express your love for something.
I totally agree. And I think it's interesting to look at like some of the genealogy of like fan edits, and like going back to like Kanye said, like Vine, and like I think of anime music videos, which were obviously like such a thing, you know, in the 2000s, and still are a thing today. But those, you know, some of those had like a very particular sort of syntax. Like, for example, there's this one 30 Seconds to Mars song called This Is War that was used in like so many, you know, anime music videos. And so it's the same sort of thing with fan edits. You have like these very specific sorts of like songs and I guess like visual tropes, you know, like really warm filters, the disco light kind of effects and stuff like that. And so I think like there is such like a rich history of these sorts of editing practices in fandom. And when we look at like fan edits, you know, it's all these different things, like from the tendency to drop fan cams in like K-pop fandom to like this history of like anime music videos. And, you know, I mean, people were making like Star Trek edits in the mid 2000s that I remember watching, right? And so I think it's like both the other panelists said, like such an expression of love and like a really fun way to engage with like a source text and really just like spend a lot of time looking at, I don't know, like Tom Hiddleston's face, right? Or whoever.
That was definitely me on Tumblr, was looking at Tom Hiddleston's face.
We've come full circle.
I was going to say, I feel like it's also something that has now found its way onto TikTok, because I think like the snappy editing style on TikTok is like, my TikTok is full of what I guess would be fan cams really, but they're obviously not in that context. They are just like a pure expression of love at that point, because there's no context around them. It's just what videos you see and what you consume. I think the recognition thing is a really interesting point, because a lot of times if you've ever looked at a fan cam that you really like, or a fan edit that you're like, oh, this is amazing, and you go and you find eventually the source of it, it's sometimes an account that has maybe like 100 followers, you know, like they're not a big creator, but their fan video might have like hundreds of thousands of views on it. There's such a level of anonymity in fan cams and fan edits. It's like a free market of content, I sort of think, when you're like, oh, I'm just going to search for like a Jake Gyllenhaal video and I'll just choose what comes. Do you think the anonymity is like part of the like weird joy and sort of like fun of these videos?
1,000%, because again, I remember when I was in fandom Twitter, like 2012 to 2016, I didn't really have my name. I didn't have my face really. It was like very much like, this is my space. Like, it's very private. No one's gonna know me. I can say what I want. I can promote whichever fan, like K-pop group, you know, One Direction. So no one's gonna know me. And you find joy in that because you kind of can be yourself without any judgment and any, you know, expectations. And I feel like a lot of these people creating it under these pseudonyms of, you know, celebrity acts, that's what works for them. Because if they wanted to make it public, I think they would have done that. They would have, you know, put their name on the account and they would have said, hey, this is me. As I've seen some of my mutuals do that, like they have their name in their face and some don't. So I think it definitely is like a choice people make on purpose.
The thing as well in like fandom is that most people won't have their profile picture as their face, you know, they're gonna have it as their favorite celebrity or their favorite character. So when they are like creating these things, whether it's GIFs or edits, it really is just in service of whatever it is that they love, and kind of their entire account usually revolves around that, and it's not really about themselves really. Yeah,
I think it's super interesting because like obviously you see like fan cams and edits, like Twitter, you know, when you share a video from like inside a tweet, it attaches credit to the account as long as you're not like screen recording and, you know, just taking it. But I think it's funny because like you simultaneously have these fan cams and edits being kind of traded around like tokens, you know, that sometimes will become memes in their own right through fandom. Like I saw yesterday, there was a fan cam for a particularly funny bit in the latest Loki episode that I won't spoil. I guess by the time this airs, it'll be long past this. But, you know, that was just getting traded around because it's really funny. But like, I think the anonymity, like specifically in fandom, like going back to like, you know, I feel like the appeal of Tumblr, for example, was that nobody knows who you are. Nobody can see how many followers you have. And even on Twitter, where some of those metrics are more public, like you can have ownership over a sort of thing and be like, stream my fan cam, give my fan cam views, spread it around, while also like, you know, not being so directly attached to it. So I think it's really interesting how they spread throughout certain circles, even if you're not the one tweeting them, if you made it.
Yeah, and also like you have no control over how they are being shared because it is so easy to embed on Twitter. And also I've noticed as well, when I've tried to find the source of a fan, like the source tweet that it came from, you know, you get the credit, but it will just take you to the account. It won't take you to like the actual time when it was posted. And it's often quite hard to find the actual source material that is there. I think you mentioned the memeage of it all, which is really fun because memes are so now anyway, they're so disposable. Like, you know, they're like, what is funny and memeable in 1 week is like completely out of date the next week. It's just like a very fast-paced way of consuming content and laughing about content. And it's kind of interesting for something that takes a lot of work and labor and sometimes, you know, days to edit, to be that digestible and to be that disposable, I guess. I guess it's the point of what we're talking about is, would you consider these edits and their context art? Or are they just sort of like elevated memes, really?
I mean, I think there's always like a fine line when you go into art and then out, in and out. I think this is really interesting because like I wrote my dissertation on memes, so I feel like this is something where I have a lot of information about them now, and so whenever I look at memes, I'm kind of like, oh, I can see like the actual effort that's gone into this, but then at the same time, it's so funny because you will post something without even realizing that people are going to find it hilarious, and in a second it will just go incredibly viral and it's just like out of your hands. And so whatever people interpret it as or whatever it becomes, it's like, okay, this is not my place anymore. And so with fan cams, I think certain people, like I remember the early fan edits of like 2016 to maybe 2018 was Nicki Minaj on, you know, red carpets, and Chirac would be playing in the background, and you have like the Oscar thing. And I assume whoever did it generally did it because they were like, they wanted to promote their fave. They didn't realize it was going to become a meme or the format would be taken over. And I think that in itself is a form of art, right? Because it's been replicated so many times that you kind of have to admire it for how much it's like touched people and made them laugh, even if someone might not consider it a, you know, a stereotypical artistic form.
I think definitely there's like an art to it, especially since I've noticed that brands have started trying to create their own sort of fan cams as well. I noticed there was like one that A24 made about Steven Yeun and Minari on his birthday, and you know, there's definitely kind of elements to that specific fan cam that, you know, are reflected in the fan cams we see every day on the timeline. There is like, you know, art's subjective, but you can tell what's a good fan cam and what's a bad fan cam. So for a brand to try and emulate the kind of same syntax, I guess, of the fan cams that, you know, regular non-branded, you know, users make every day, I think there definitely is a style and just like a quality that definitely, I guess, is art, I suppose.
Yeah, I totally feel like on that there is like a very specific like language to fan edits, and like, you know, like a visual sort of, yeah, language in terms of like stylistic conventions and stuff. And I think the brand example is super interesting because there was this very specific moment last year, I think it was around maybe September or October, but an artist made a fan cam for the United States Postal Service that went really viral because that's hilarious, right? It's like promotional Postal Service clips set to WAP by Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. But what happened was the Lincoln Project, which is a conservative political action committee, like an anti-Trump political action committee in the United States, stole the fan cam, didn't give credit, took out WAP and put in an edit of the like Mr. Postman song. And everyone was like, okay, well, it's better with WAP first. But you know, like it had broken that convention, and also like the optics of being a political action committee stealing in somebody's organic fan cam is like bad objectively. But you know, it's like sometimes like brands miss the mark, and that sort of, not that that's necessarily a brand, but larger organizations like miss the mark trying to create these or adapt them. And so I think like looking at whether or not they're art or not, like there is such a specific sort of convention and style that you're really only going to have a grasp on if like you're immersed in that, and that you really just will start to pick up. And that requires skill to be able to execute well.
Yeah, it is really funny that they changed the song, because that seems to just be like completely not understanding the point of a fan cam or like a fan edit, which is like there are many layers, and the song is so obviously one of them. Like, you know, when there's like a fan cam song, and to take out WAP, which was so viral as a fan cam song, to change it into something that's not viral at all, like you've already completely lost the point. It's just like it's these unwritten rules that anyone who is terminally online, like myself, like you just know by osmosis, I guess. That does lead on to the whole sort of explosion of fan cams in a way last year in a way that we hadn't seen before, which was that they were used for some sort of online political activism. You know, we saw with K-pop fan cams, so the like you said, the vertical ones of idols, they were used to spam police scanners for during Black Lives Matter protests, and then during elections, you know, you had fan edits made of like news anchors, and you had states turning blue fan cams, which are some of my favorite ones, and vaccine rollouts and stuff. I was wondering what your sort of opinion on that whole re-evolution of them, I guess, seeing that happen as people who were aware of really fan cams before anyway.
I mean, I think on one hand, I do understand why people were using them in that way, especially when it came last year doing the Black Lives Matter rallies and, you know, spamming people's comments and making sure, you know, certain people were, you know, being dragged, quote unquote. But then on the other hand, I kind of, when I take my fandom internet cap off and put my thinking cap on, I'm like, I don't necessarily see how this kind of has a long-term effect in terms of helping people. And I think that's not up to the fans to do. I don't think it's their job to have any long-term effects. I think I'm also judging sort of like the old media and the way in which they're reporting on it. And instead of being like, hey, maybe we should also care about this thing going on, they're like, look at these teenagers and how they're fixing them. It's like, it's not their job. They're teenagers. Like, they're doing what they can in, you know, the small amount of resources they have. And so I think that's what kind of annoyed me about that era, because I kept seeing just like older people being like, the kids are okay. And it's like, well, they're children. They shouldn't have to be doing this. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of what my take was.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because like during that whole time when I think like we saw K-pop stans specifically being like mythologized in real time as these like anti-racist, you know, like online sort of like vigilantes. And there was definitely this tension because like as K-pop stans were spamming like hashtags like White Lives Matter with fan cams, they're also in the process causing them to trend, right? And like you're just elevating that for essentially what became like a notoriety sort of thing, you know, because there was like you were saying, like there was a whole thing like, oh, the kids are all right, you know, we need to call the K-pop stans. How do I summon the K-pop stans? And it drew a lot of focus away from at the same time, like a lot of the racism and specifically anti-Blackness that was happening in fandom itself. And that is still endemic in K-pop fandom specifically. And so it was definitely like a weird moment in terms of, you know, stans are getting praised for this sort of thing, dropping a fan cam when in effect you're making these hashtags trend. You're not necessarily like combating racism in the digital spaces that you inhabit in the first place. And so it was interesting to see that become like such a calling card specifically to people outside of fandom as well, because it completely sort of that moment really like flattened all of that discourse. And so I think it's interesting that though like fan cams came to be seen in that era as like a mode of political resistance, when in effect when you look at it, it's like what is actually happening here, you know, what kind of work is functionally really being done here, specifically in those like Twitter hashtag sort of moments.
Yeah, that people summoning sort of essentially like young people like as like a bat signal, which was a very interesting time where it was like, okay, but what does this serve beyond this? Like, is that the end of the conversation, is just like summoning people, like you said, to trend hashtags that are very triggering for a lot of people as well? I think like that is also left out of the conversation, is that like for the people that it affects, seeing something trend, even if it is being spammed, like even if you go into the trending topic and it's all people on your side, even it being in the trending topics is like incredibly triggering. It is an interesting thing. But then I guess that was more of like the fan cam side of things. I guess around the election as well, we had, like I said, the fan edits really had a resurgence, or had like a real moment. And I think it was when it was like news anchors and like I said, like the election results coming in. I think it was really emblematic of how online that election had been, considering the climate that we were in. Like it had to just be a more online sort of like political run. they were quite funny. I was wondering if you had any takes on how those kind of ones were being used, as opposed to maybe the less sort of get the K-pop stands to help us. Like, how did you feel about those ones popping up on your timeline?
I mean, on one hand, I feel like I understand why someone would make a fan edit of like Kamala Harris or Bernie Sanders, because again, we are so online and everything to do with politics is so online now that you can't separate the two. And especially when you're talking about, you know, a politician such as Trump and going from Trump to Kamala and Joe Biden, I understand why that would be such a happy moment for people to create things like this. Because again, fan edits come out of joy, they come out of love. But at the same time, I do kind of worry when we kind of memify politicians, because that makes them into a celebrity and it makes them into this sort of untouchable things like, oh, this is so funny. And then when you try to criticize said politician, you're sort of met with a barrage of sort of like, you can't say that because they're someone I care about and someone that I projected onto and someone that I love. And I think we should definitely be careful. I think news anchors and, you know, states turning different colors, I get that, but like specifically when it comes to politicians, I'm always very weary. Just because, like, I remember in 2016, I specifically said, and this is when I was like 17 years old, and I said that I found it weird that people were standing like the younger versions of Hillary, Joe Biden, and Bernie, and I got just slated for saying that. They were like, oh, it's not that deep, you know, I don't get why you're saying that. And then like fast forward to 2021, and people are realizing that. I'm like, I see like there's an issue at hand. But then I guess 2016 versus now, people are a lot more kind of aware in how media affects us and how we, you know, personify people online.
I think on a related note as well, specifically about the kind of states turning blue fan cams are just kind of really indicative of how, I guess, omnipresent fan edits and fan cams are these days, that like people are able to understand the very specific language of fan cams, that they're able to translate it from something so abstract as like a state turning blue, where I think that was like a song transition in like Lady Gaga's Chromatica. Yeah, just the fact that people are so aware of like how fan cams work and that it really can be applied to absolutely anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was one fan cam that I love, which was, I think it was, Georgia turning blue, and it was to Twice Feel Special, and the views on that is so good. The views on it, I think it's something like 3 million views on it, and as someone who is like in K-pop fandom, that is not all Twice fans. Like that is like very much people from all different sort of walks of the internet, and it's like this weird melting pot of like, okay, well, all of our references are now in one thing, and it's like working for everyone. It was so interesting. Parma, did you have anything to add to the?
Yeah, I mean, similar sort of point. That was a great fan edit. There was the Georgia one. There was a really good, Nevada one, which I feel like was the Chromatica one you were talking about, Ayana. But yeah, I think like it also really speaks to the fact that like, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. Like the art of the fan cam itself has become a meme. And this was happening even back in like maybe 2019, 2018, when I first really saw like on my timeline, like fan edits starting to expand to like, there was this phenomenon or like caption where people would be like, fuck it, blank fan cam. And like the humor is derived from like, whenever that's something you normally wouldn't make a fan cam out of. And so like, I think some of the humor and like virality of those like election sort of related fan cams, or people like thirsting over data analysts and stuff like that, is derived from the fact that like, it's kind of funny to like make an edit of like the state of Nevada electoral votes or whatever. And so I think it kind of speaks to like the memification of like the fan cam form itself, and the fact that like people love it when you just make fan cams out of things you wouldn't expect there to be a fan cam of.
That's a really interesting point, because I'm trying to see if I can explain how I'm thinking in my head right now. But when we were talking earlier on about sort of like the origins of a fan cam and a fan edit, is the overriding thing was like, it's just out of love. Like it's a pure expression of like someone loving their fave and wanting to just like look at them for hours as they edit and stuff. And then as it's become more of a meme, like you said, it's the meme of like loving something so much that wouldn't normally be loved. And I find it interesting because I do think that sort of behavior is quite like feminized online. The idea of loving things like stan culture is like considered a very like feminine thing, or, you know, like mainly female fans. And that's why a lot of times it's like derided because of it, you know, it's sort of laughed at. And then it's really interesting that stan language, which for the most part has been young women, is now like the dominant form of language as a way to like get people to care. And it's like become, like you said, like it's used in politicians, it's used for fan cams that are just not things that you would normally, like you said, it's like funny to have a fan cam of like a random thing, like data analysts and stuff. And I just think it's like an interesting taking of something that like was quite a young, for young women mainly, and sort of not taking it away from them, but having it evolve into something else. I don't know what question I'm asking, but I just thought that was an interesting sort of lifespan, really. It's, again, I think, an example of young women having their stuff taken away from them a little bit and repackaged, I guess. Is that fair to say?
That makes complete sense, because I think when people talk about stan culture and try to criticize it, there's like obviously two ways people can go about it. And like I've written about stan culture before and sort of like my worries about how it exists, but that's less so coming from a place of look at these women and they're crazy for liking this. But when you see people making fun of stan, that's mostly where it comes from, because they view it as a very feminized thing. And it's kind of ironic because at the same time, I have seen fan cams of wrestlers, of football players, of, you know, things that are typically male, but they're not necessarily mocked, or even like for us to being in the UK right now, the way in which people are reacting to the football, that's actually the same behavior someone would have over a Twice edit. But, you know, one is derided and one is hated, one isn't. So it definitely is a gendered thing.
Having said all of this about like the weight that fan cams now randomly carry in this world where we're both consuming terrible news all the time, but it's in the exact same place where we're also consuming a lot of joy, like everything is in the same place. That's why the language gets so mixed. At the end of the day, I guess like fan cams and fan edits are supposed to be kind of like a fun thing that you digest and you're like, that was nice. Is there any fan cam or fan edit that you guys frequently go back to as like something that you enjoy?
So one is a Steven Yeun edit set to What by Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B. It's not, you know, about Steven Yeun himself, it's about the characters that he's played. It's mostly just he's hot. That's the point of the fan cam. And, you know, it's ones you just watch and it's like, yeah, I get it. And there are multiple like versions of that people have. People have like specific Robert Pattinson fan cams they watch because it's like attractive. But another one is I watch a lot of Succession fan cams because I think it honestly just represents the show so well that people make fan edits about rich assholes who themselves would not care about fan edit and would also make fun. It's just a level of just like what's the word? Just like the context building on itself, and it's just I find that really humorous.
So basically, I was gonna say this isn't really a specific fan cam, but a specific genre of fan cam that I really like is there's these fan cams that basically I think they're set to this song. I can't remember what it's called, like, but it goes like Literal Legend and
by
Ayesha Rocca, yes. Yeah. And it's basically like running through the achievements or like the filmography of an actor. And like it's really like rapid and fast paced, and there's just like an information overload that comes from that fan cam, but I just find it really engaging, and it's just like a really funny like way of petty bragging, I guess, about like, look how successful my fave is. I just find that one really hilarious.
I see that one all the time in K-pop fandom, as again, because fan wars are such a big thing in K-pop fandom. So many, and that is always there for any K-pop idol. Is the literal legend fan cam. It's so good. It's so funny. Always works.
I think one of my I watch a lot of like K-pop performance fan cams as a stan, and there are some recorded from there's this girl group called Luna, and recorded from I think like some of their first like 2 like fan meetings or concerts, and there's one of Vivi, who's the oldest member of the group, performing her solo song, Every Day I Love You. You should stream it. It's a joy. And the youngest member of the group, Yeojin, doing the rap verse on it. And it's a joy. And that's like one of my big, like, okay, I'm gonna go back and watch this and like feel a little bit better about my life, because it's such a fun pop song and performance. But otherwise, I'm really addicted to, there was a period where like Beef Flow Mix was like the fan cam song by Flo Milli. And those ones, it has just like the best lyrics and her delivery is so incredible. And those, I would just like watch those ones for hours. That's the, I like cash in my hair to my ass, you know? And so it's a joy. Those are some of my like favorite like formats.
That song is one of my favorite ones. Is around the Oscars. There was Sharon Choi, who was Bong Joon-ho's translator, and she started getting a lot of love, of course, as like Parasite started getting more and more like acclaim. And one of my favorite ones is a fan cam of her with that song, and it's just like, it's just, she's so badass, and it works so well for her in that song. One of my favorites is again, I think it was the Georgia Turning Blue with Twice Feel Special. I just think is like the best thing ever. And there's a fan edit of a K-pop idol called Taemin that I love that is set to Dua Lipa's Levitating. It is my favorite fan cam in the world. I will post it anytime anyone lets me. But I think it's interesting that out of all of our examples, they're all quite different, or like they all have different formats. There's like a purest form fan cam, you know, with the Luna, and then you have the sort of like accolades one, which is just bragging. And then you have the like semi-ironic one and stuff. I just think it's just really indicative of like how many languages fan cams really have and how many purposes they have as well. I was going to ask, has a fan cam or a fan edit ever actually, like, has it ever worked? Has it ever promoted someone to you that you've been like, I'm going to look into this person?
Oh my God, I have the perfect example. So basically, like, I promised myself that I would never ever get into K-pop. Like, I just like pushed it away. And then I saw this fan cam of Hyunjin from Stray Kids performing Psycho by Red Velvet.
I knew you were going to choose this one. I knew when it was like the one that turned me.
But the thing is, I think that's a fan cam that like converted a lot of people as well. Like, that was just a very impactful fan cam. But yeah, after that, like, I simply had to stand. So that was just like, there's just like something in that fan cam that's very addictive to watch. I don't know what it is.
I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I think this happened to me with ATEEZ, another K-pop group, but it was like an edit. It was like a compilation that I saw going around Twitter a bunch of Jongho from ATEEZ breaking fruit with his hands, which is a thing he is very known for. And he's usually belting while he does it. And so that was one where I was like, wow, this guy can really sing. And then like I started seeing like San from ATEEZ fan cams, and then it was over for me in that moment.
What about you, Hania?
Good. I'm trying to think, because I think I got into K-pop before the fan edits happened. So I don't think I've been converted in the same way, but I've definitely like seen fan cams of like celebrities or actors and been like, this person's very attractive. I'm gonna Google them and find out more about them. And it's happened so many times I can't even count, where like I'll be on TikTok scrolling and I'll be like, oh, that person's really pretty. And then I just like go into like a rabbit hole of everything they've ever created.
I do think that happens a lot of times around award season. I think that your Steven Yeun fan cam is probably a really good example of that. There's like Daniel Kaluuya ones, Riz Ahmed ones, sort of that kind of thing, where it is sort of the way that a lot of people learn about films that otherwise they wouldn't have really sought out, because often award films are quite hard to digest for some people, you know, like they're not easy watching a lot of times, or, you know, that kind of thing. So I think around award season, you get your faves, and that's how it happens for sure. I can't think if I ever had one actually. I think, there's a member of EXO called Seon who has an amazing WOP edit. It's like the most perfect WOP edit in the entire world. Final, I guess, points is there anything sort of in the world of fan cams that you like want to talk about a bit more, in the sense of like their impact, their cultural relevancy, like where you think fan cam culture is going to go? Because I do actually think we've seen less traditional fan cams, like the vertical ones. I think we see less of those, especially after the like online activism sort of. I think that they left a bit of a taste in people's mouths that like people didn't really like that much. I wonder if you have any ideas of like what we're going to see more of, or like how we're going to see fan cams utilized later on as the time goes on.
I definitely think we're going to see more, like you were saying about how I'm trying to think of just like corporations sort of using fan cams, because you've seen on TikTok how like people use a certain song on a fan cam and then it'll go on Twitter and then it'll go viral and the song goes viral, and then like a Flow Mini, and like right now you have one going viral with anime fans, so they're creating fan edits of their faves to the song called Partner Them on TikTok, and it's gone very viral. And I think we're definitely just going to see a lot more artists utilizing that from their own teams. I don't know necessarily if they're going to try and make it seem organic or not, because I feel like if you present it as, you know, the celebrity or artist creating it, it feels a bit icky, because it's like, this is something that's supposed to be like, not unbiased, but like, I'm not doing it because I'm getting paid to do it. I'm doing it because I care about this thing. So we'll see if that changes over the time.
Yeah, I feel like I'm very skeptical of brands like and like labels and stuff being able to really like actually co-opt and like leverage, you know, fan cams. I remember I don't know if anyone remembers this horrific like the Baby Nut Planters Peanuts like social media campaign where they killed Mr. Peanut. He died and he came back to life as a little baby. And they had this whole moment where I think actually some of their accounts got suspended. They created like meme accounts that were very transparently from the brand, but like were meant to, I think, seem organic. And, you know, I remember like there was like a Baby Nuts sort of fan cam. And I was like, what is going on here? Like I truly, but I think like speaking to that, you know, I think it's always, I guess in my opinion, like the best fan cams and the most successful ones are probably always going to really come from fans. And I'm sure that like labels, artists, companies love that because it's free promotion. But, you know, I question if it's something that will ever really be like successfully, you know, adopted in that way on like a marketing front. But I think edits are such like a dominant language online, like you were saying on TikTok, especially in anime fandom. Like, I mean, anime fans make the best edits. And so so I think like it's just gonna keep rolling from there.
Yeah, it's just been a bunch of like Jujutsu Kaisen fan cam I've been seeing, you know, every single day.
The amount of Gojo on my feed, what a man.
It's so funny because I feel like TikTok's algorithm is so particular, more than almost any other social media app. So like what you're getting fed is very specific for you. Like you can tailor it really well. And it's really funny that it feels like everyone gets fan cams. Like whatever you're seeing, whatever like your specific brand of entertainment is. Like I definitely got fed a Stanley Tucci fan cam like the other day on TikTok, which is very like me.
I forgot about this one. I saw a Steve Buscemi fan cam when he was younger, and I think that's what I forgot. And I watched it and I was like, oh my god, why do I find Steve Buscemi hot? And I just went through it. And then I also at the same time realized he looks a lot like the guy who played It, and then that also led me down to a rabbit hole of like I don't know how to pronounce their last names. It's the group of brothers who
one of the Skarsgårds.
I went into a rabbit hole of that as well. So that happened to me because of TikTok.
The power of a good fan cam to make young Steve Buscemi hot. Ayana, do you have anything that you wanted to add in the future of fan cams, fan edits?
I'm not really sure like where it could go next, other than we're just gonna keep seeing, you know, any old person, you know, commemorated in a fan cam. I remember I tweeted a couple of months ago, like I would like searched on Twitter Toshiro Mifune fan cam and there wasn't anything, and then someone like 2 hours later made one, and I just thought that was so funny that like this really, you know, this old, well, classic Japanese movie star was getting a fan cam. I mean, he's worth a fan cam, like everyone first over him. but I think, you know, we're just going to see more and more people getting the fan cam treatment that we might not expect, which is very exciting. I love to see a random fan cam about a person you wouldn't normally see get one. So
direct to fan cams are my favorite. Like, there's a Scorsese one that I love that I do all the time.
Fan cams for everyone. That's all I can hope. Maybe we all get fan cams of ourselves one day, if that's where we're going. Thank you guys so much for chatting to me about fan cams and fan edits. I feel like we could talk about fan cams forever, so I probably shouldn't though. But yeah, thank you so much for joining and giving your expertise and your valuable insight on the world of fan cams and fan edits. Thank you all for watching this event and taking part in the summit this year. So to close the event, we've put together a reel of some of our favorite fan cams and edits, some of them that we talked about already, for you to get a feel of everything that we just spoke about. So enjoy watching.
He wanna dip me the tippy, then put it on my lippy. Even when it gets sticky, he know we still got the grippy. Yeah, I'm pulling your card though, got him calling me Vicky. All these bitches my minis, got him calling me Mickey.
Me, swallow me, drip down inside of me. Quick jump out for you, let it get inside of me. I tell them where to put it, never tell them where I'm about to be. I run down on them before I have a nigga running me. Talk your shit, bite your lip. Ask for a call while you ride that dick. You really ain't never got him fucking for a thing. He already made his mind up before he came. Now,
I'm a bitch, I'm a boss. I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass. I'm a bitch, I'm a boss. I'm a bitch and a boss, I'ma shine like glass. I'm a bitch, I'm a boss.
I'm familiar with having a translator here by now.
I like cash in my hair to my ass. Do the dash, can you make it go fast? Fuck the fame, all I want is them bands. If she keep on mugging, I'ma still her man. He watching my behavior cause he know I'm bad. Pussy put a spell on him, he in a trance. I do what I please and you do what I ask. He love my confidence and that's what you lack if you think I'm still in swag.
Talk your shit, bite your lip. Ask for a call while you ride that dick. You really ain't never got him fucking for a thing. He already made his mind up before he came. Now get your boots, hang your coat for this wet ass pussy. He bought a phone just for pictures of this wet ass pussy. Pay my tuition just to kiss me on this wet ass pussy. Now make it rain if you wanna see some wet ass pussy.
You make me feel special.